Some
Did
say,
they?
oh, a mistress,
Yeah.
it sounds like Esther.
It does sound like Esther. I was going to say that. Yeah.
But her father is not Jewish.
Yeah, but don't people
Uh,
lie about their
and
lineage?
also the things that Greek historians say about her,
Yeah.
we don't want them to say about Esther. She was very vicious.
Well, that sounds. I mean, how do I say this? That if you look at what they say today in Greece about Israelis, they're also pretty vicious. They're not true, but I mean, shalom and welcome to Hebrew Voices. I'm here today with Thamar Gindin. She's Israel's first cultural attaché in free Iran. We'll talk about what that means. And until Iran is free, she builds bridges between the Iranian and Israeli nations, opening eyes on both sides to see that the other side is human and that we are more similar than different. She does this by social media, mass media, and other network activity in Hebrew, English, and Persian, mostly about current affairs, in addition to lecturing and writing about pre-Islamic Iran, which I think we'll probably spend most of the time on. Dr. Gindin is a disciple of world-renowned Iranianist, I don't know how to pronounce that,
Iranist.
Iranist, Professor Shaul Shaked, and a research fellow at Haifa University's Esli Center for Iran and Persian Gulf Research. Shalom, Tamar. Tamar, is it Dr. Tamar Gindin?
Yes, it's doctor, but
Okay.
in Israel, we usually don't use it.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, people always trying to call me Dr. Gordon, and I say that's I'm just Nehemia, meaning you can call me that, but anyway. So there's a lot of things I want to talk about, and you've been very generous with your time, and you do a lot of programs. I've seen you on TikTok, and I've seen clips from Israeli television talking about we just had the 12-day war with Iran as we were recording this, and you're no doubt an expert in that. But I'm a Bible scholar, and I wanna touch upon some Bible scholar subjects. But maybe
So
let's
I
just
just want to
yeah,
say that my
yeah,
background
yeah. Tell us about
is
that.
from it's presently in the Tehran Museum, but it was taken from the gates of Susa, which
Mm,
is Shushan Habira, the capital,
okay,
uh, the winter capital of the Achaemenid kings, the ones mentioned in the Bible.
okay. So in the Book of Esther, the whole story takes place in Shoshana Bira. I don't know
Yes,
how it's translated in English. Like probably like Susa, the capital or
Shushan, the
something.
citadel.
Oh, that okay. So that's from the. So this is so in wait. So in the story at least, when Mordecai is standing outside the gates and he overhears this conspiracy to assassinate Achashverosh or Artaxerxes or however that's translated in English, Ahasuerus,
Xerxes.
Xerxes. Oh, it's Xerxes. Okay,
Xerxes.
okay. We're gonna get to that. So this is what he might have seen if and I know there's some question about the
Right.
historicity that we'll talk about, but so this is the gate he would have seen. Wow. All right.
Yes.
So that's very cool. So the Jewish people, or let's say the Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, um, have this very long-standing connection with Iran, and I think most people don't realize this. In 2 Kings 17, it talks about the exile. I'm pulling it up here. The exile of the 10 tribes, what we call the 10 lost tribes, often today, and it mentions that they were sent to this, I believe it's the cities of Persia
Rei
and Media.
Madai, the
Oh, the
cities
cities
of
of
Media.
Media. Okay. Let's start with that. So we have the 10 tribes going to Media,
And
uh,
we're talking
and it's
about
not
something
social
like
media, right? What is media?
we're talking about something like 721, 723 before the Common Era.
Hmm.
This is the first time that Israel came in contact with Iran. Media
Mm,
was the previous empire before the Persian Empire.
mm.
Cyrus the Great conquered Media from his grandfather, according to myth. He conquered Media, he conquered Babylon, and united them under the brand Persia.
What do you mean he
Um,
conquered it from his grandfather? His grandfather was a Mede and he was a Persian, or what?
well, the legend goes, the legend is cited also by Herodotus, but Herodotus himself says that there are many birth stories, but this is the most common one.
Tell the audience who Herodotus was.
Herodotus is a Greek historian. Most of what we know about Persian kings and court, we know from Greek historians. We know from things that the kings wrote themselves. Um, I read Ahasuerus in the original.
Oh wow. Wait,
Yeah,
so Achashverosh Ahasuerus of Book of Esther, we have things he wrote.
Shayalsha, yes, he wrote a lot.
Okay, wait, how did you pronounce his name?
Shayalsha.
Okay,
But
Shayalsha.
because Shayarsha is very difficult, impossible for
I can't
classical
even say
Hebrew.
it, let alone an ancient Israelite.
It's impossible for Israelites of that era to pronounce. They added a prophetic vowel before and became Achshayalsha, and with time and script, and because the Bible was vocalized a few hundred years after it was written down, it became Achashverosh. And in Greek, they called him Xerxes because they couldn't pronounce Chayalsha.
So these are what we call exonyms, right? So the Greeks call him Xerxes or Xerxes, and Jews call him Achashverosh.
It's different ways to pronounce the same name. An exonym is Persia because inside the country they always call themselves Iran.
Wait, so Iran isn't the modern name? In ancient times they call themselves Iran?
The name Iran is documented before Persia. Persia is one of the Iranian countries.
Okay.
Or provinces.
You mean it's a province? Okay. It's like the Americans call the Netherlands, we call it Holland, even though Holland is a district in Netherlands.
We also call it Holland, yes.
Yeah.
and each country calls the Greeks by a different name.
Yeah.
We call it in Hebrew and in Persian, it's called Yavan or Yunan after Ionia, which is in present-day Turkey, but was part of the Greek Empire. And the Greeks are another Greek tribe. But we were in Cyrus the Great.
Yeah. So go ahead. Let's go back to Cyrus. We were talking about Achashverosh, right? So
Achashverosh, Herodotus.
Herodotus. Okay, yeah.
Right.
Wait, so how much of Persian history from that period do we have from the internal Persian sources, and how much do we have from, let's say, the outside sources of the Greeks?
Most of it is from outside sources. The Persian kings themselves wrote a lot, but didn't disclose too much information. There's one story that we must discuss about Darius' accession to the throne. And this story is documented in Greek sources and by Darius himself in slightly different versions.
Okay. You know what? Can we talk for a minute about Jewish understanding of Persian history? So there's an ancient rabbinical book, Seder Olam Rabbah, and when we say this year is 5,700 and I think, are we in 85 yet, or is that coming in a few weeks?
We're in 85, and the next year
86 is we're about to get to in a few weeks. So that's partially based on based on Seder Olam Rabbah, which tells us the Persian period was, and I want to say it was 52 years, but it's been years since. It has some confusion about Persian history that Darius the Mede and Daryavesh and all these different figures were all the same person, and they kind of telescope all of Persian history.
And Chazal said they were all the same king. He was called Koresh because he was kosher. That's Cyrus the Great, and he was called. I don't remember why they said he was called Xerxes, and they said that all the different names, and Artaxerxes after his kingship. But no, we know the order.
Okay.
Because the Achaemenid kings, the thing that they did document was the order. Okay.
So the names of the specific kings we know, but some of the details we only know from outside sources, which maybe are correct.
Yeah, he says Adam Shayarsha Darayavahush Putha Wishtaspahya Putha. I am Xerxes, son of Darius, son of Wishtaspa, and he says all the dynasty up to Hachemanish, who is the king after which the Achaemenid Empire is named.
Okay. Tell us what Achaemenid means. I'm sure most of my audience has never heard.
Hachemanish is the founding father. Actually, he's not the founding father of the empire. He's the founding father of the dynasty. Cyrus the Great was his, I don't remember if it was his great-grandson or his great-great-grandson. I can look it up in a book that I have right by my side.
No, that's sufficient for our purposes, and people can Google it as well. But
yeah.
So I
can also send you a family tree that you can put
send
on the
that,
podcast.
and we'll put that on the website. So the So I
I
guess my
just want
point.
to say
Yeah,
that
go
Cyrus
ahead.
the Great didn't call himself Hacham He didn't call himself Achaemenid.
Oh,
Um, but Darius the Great, who was not Cyrus's son, but a
hmm,
distant relative,
yeah.
was the first king to use the term Hacham Achaemenid, to justify why he's the right person to succeed. Actually, not Cyrus himself, but his sons. Cyrus had two sons, and the uh, kingship was transferred to Darius in a story that we must address uh, when we come
Okay.
to
Let me
it.
let me make a note
And
so we don't forget it. So
and
it's Darius's
and
ascension to the
Darius
throne.
married Cyrus's daughter. So Ahasuerus, Xerxes, is Cyrus's grandson, but Cyrus is his maternal great grandfather.
Mm,
And in order to say we're worthy of kingship, he goes back not to Chishpish, the first common ancestor he has with Cyrus the Great, but to Hachamanisha, Chishpish's father.
mm. Okay. All right. So we know pretty much about who the Persian kings were, and that's from Persian sources. And maybe we'll talk a minute about the Behistun inscription. I hope I'm saying that right. It's like the Rosetta
The
Stone
Histun.
it's like the
That's
Rosetta
Darius'
Stone of
accession to
Persian.
the throne.
Okay, let's talk about that. So it's this giant. I learned about this in my undergrad in the '90s in archaeology at Hebrew University because it was like the Rosetta Stone. It's the way they deciphered ancient Akkadian.
Right.
So
Old
tell us
Persian
about
was
this.
deciphered through this stone. It's a most of, not most, but a lot of the Achaemenid inscriptions are trilingual,
What are the
written
three
in
languages?
Assyrian, Elamitic, and
Mhm.
Old Persian.
Okay.
And the way they deciphered Old Persian, they first deciphered the like blank space, which is cuneiform that's like this. The second thing they deciphered was the sequence Shayafia, king, because it was the most common
Mm,
word. And
yeah.
then from there, using Middle Persian, which was already known, and Avestan, which is another ancient Iranian language from
Mhm.
the same generation as Old Persian, they used this and just deciphered the whole language. Luckily, Old Persian, unlike Assyrian, um, is uh, is not ideographic. It is like Hebrew. It has vowels and syllables,
Mhm.
vowels and consonants. Each consonant can either be with or without, and then you have another vocalization. And they don't have that many cuneiforms. I learned
Mm.
Akkadian, aka Assyrian, and it's impossible. Each cuneiform can be read in a few ways, and each syllable can be written in a few ways. It's very confusing.
Okay. All right. So let's jump into probably the story that most of my listeners will associate with Persia is the story of Esther, the scroll of Esther. And you've written an entire book about the scroll of Esther. I got the book both in Hebrew and in English. My understanding is the English is not a translation; it's a reworking of the book
It's an adaptation.
adaptation. Okay. So,
And Persian is also in adaptation as we speak.
what do you mean?
The Persian version of the Book of Esther Unmasked is
Ah, you
in
wrote the
adaptation.
book in Persian too.
I have a linguist that I trust that adapts
Oh,
it, and
wow.
I go over it and check it, and I tell him here when I explain this in Hebrew and this I explain in
Oh, that's
English, you
cool.
explain it by Persian.
All right. So the story of Esther. You have some. I mean, we could probably talk the whole time on that, but I want to talk about different subjects. You have some very interesting insights, and I don't even know where to begin. I think where I want to begin is one of the things that strikes me about the story, and we can talk about the historicity that you have some views on. But what strikes me about it is uh, you get that Xerxes or Ahasuerus is this alcoholic who has ceded his authority to Haman, and because of his, this character flaw he has that he just can't control himself. And you had like a different perspective on that about states of consciousness. And can you talk about that?
Right. It's not mine. I took it from the Greek historians, from
Okay.
Herodotus. I say Herodotus, but there are a few Greek historians. He's just the most famous. The Achaemenid kings, according to Greek historians, used to make their decision while intoxicated and then approve it when they were sober. This way, you make the decision both from your heart or liver, as Iranians would say, and from your head or heart, as Iranians would say, both by mind and by intuition or feeling.
Okay.
So, um, so every decision is supposed to be made like this. This is why he makes the decision of banishing his queen, his main queen consort, while intoxicated. And then when when the king's wrath subsided, he approves of it and remembers what he did and starts the
So the way it's been
search for a
interpreted
Persian
in
idol.
the way it's been interpreted in Jewish sources is he made a bad decision, but he was stuck with it when he sobered up. And you're saying that no, it actually was deliberate, that for the decision to be considered a good idea, you have to make it drunk and then still think it's a good idea when you're sober. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there is this loophole. I don't know if it's a loophole, it's like a trap, the opposite of a loophole. We have in the book of Esther itself, "את הנחתם בטבעת המלך אין להשיב," something that was sealed with the king's signet ring cannot be undone.
Mhm.
So if it was signed, it would be problematic to undo it. This is why you shouldn't sign decrees when you're drunk, only when you're sober after you thought again about it. And there's a similar story about a decree that was signed and then you have to respect it, also in Greek sources, about going to the Persian Greek wars.
Mm.
Xerxes is famous in the West for the Battle of Thermopylae,
Okay.
which is the battle
Thermopylae, I
that he,
think we say
yeah.
in American English. So,
Yeah.
so wait, is that the Battle of the 300? I'm bad with Greek history.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. With the 300 Spartans, and the Persians won, but at what a cost. And then they lost at Salamis because of the weather.
And that was the naval battle, Salamis, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the Greeks were in the harbor, and the Persian ships were in the sea, and the storm just wrecked them. I also wrote another book about the Book of Esther, which is a historic novel. It was translated to English but not published yet.
Okay.
We hope to publish it maybe next year. And there we say that at the end of the Thermopylae battle, it is said that Xerxes buried 20,000 people before he let his army pass because he didn't want his soldiers to see that so many Persians have died and be discouraged. Now, burying people in the ground, in the good earth, in the holy earth, is a grave sin in Zoroastrian belief. So we said, okay, he sinned, he strengthened the demons and weakened the gods. No wonder he lost because of the weather at Salamis.
So, well, we're going to have to talk about Zoroastrianism. That's the other thing that I think is extremely important from a, let's say, understanding a Tanakh perspective. There's a lot of things related to that in the Tanakh. And all right, so that's interesting. So it sounds to me like, from what you're saying, Achashverosh getting drunk was a feature, not a bug, right? Meaning,
right. In the Greco-Persian Wars, he signed the decree, and then he regretted it, but he had a dream vision that repeated a few times of a person coming and saying, "You already signed the decree, you can't undo it." And then he had someone else wear his pajamas and sleep in his bed and dream his dream to make sure that it was real.
Wow. All right. So talk to me about, and I've heard you speak about the historicity of Esther, that you you don't think it really happened.
Um,
Is that right?
you know, I don't want to risk making, claims that when time travel is invented, we'll just find out that the biblical author just exaggerated a lot. But there are a few things that, well, make you suspect it didn't happen. Like, first of all, it's not documented anywhere. The first time the Jews are
In Persian
mentioned,
sources, you mean?
it's not documented anywhere outside the Bible.
Oh, outside
Not
the
in
Bible.
Persian
Okay.
sources, not in Greek sources. And in a Greek source, you would expect the Greeks, who didn't miss any opportunity to badmouth the Persians, to miss such an opportunity, because it's a Persian king who allows a minority to butcher. First of all, he allows all the nations to commands all the nations to butcher a minority, and then gives that minority permission to slaughter all the others. And 75,810 people, I counted in chapter 9,
Okay.
is a lot, even for our days. And imagine for the world like 2,500 years ago.
Hmm.
By the way, it's exactly 2,500 years ago. It will be in 2026,
Oh, okay.
because the 12th year of Ahasuerus is 474 before the Common Era.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Um,
So,
so you would expect the Greeks to write something about it,
mhm.
even if the Persians didn't write anything about it, because maybe, it's
It's
embarrassing.
embarrassing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
ancient peoples didn't write about embarrassing. I mean, look, I
No, but
interviewed.
they did write about embarrassments of the other side.
Okay.
And we
Well,
don't have,
I interviewed Michael Oren about the Six Day War, and he pointed something fascinating out, which is that, and this is obviously a few years back. At the time, there hadn't been there was only one book ever written in Syria about the Six Day War, and the person who wrote it was a Druze, and he was executed. Right. This was like maybe
it,
5 or 10 years ago. So it doesn't.
regarding the 12-day war, the
Yeah.
Iranians found a much better solution.
What's the
They just,
solution?
they say they won.
Oh, there you go. They lied. All right. So it doesn't surprise me that there wouldn't necessarily be a lot of information from the Persians. You're saying you'd expect it from the Greeks, though.
From the Greeks, from the Babylonians, who kept an archive, that all the timing, that we know exactly when when should I say Ahasuerus, Xerxes, or Ahasuerus?
Whatever you decide. You decide.
Okay.
If you say
When
Achashverosh, my audience will not know who that is, right? So
so
I always
Xerxes would be
struggle with this.
best.
Sure,
Okay.
Xerxes. Yeah, sure.
So if we when we
The
know
king of the
exactly
Book of
when
Esther.
the king of, yeah, we know exactly when he became king. It was
Mm,
November or December 486 before the Common
wow,
Era.
that's
We know
specific.
that because the Babylonians kept very exact archives,
Hmm.
and that it
Okay.
was during that month, because before that they mentioned Darius, and after that they mentioned
Mm,
Xerxes. So and the Babylonians didn't say anything about it. Jews are first mentioned in Iranian sources in the 3rd century of the Common Era.
wow.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but we know there were Jews in Persia. So there's one of the points we struggle with in history is what we call the
We
argument
weren't
from
that
silence.
important.
No, but they existed, right? Meaning.
Yes.
Or let me ask this: is there any dispute that there were Jews in Persia? I don't know, in the 5th century BCE.
N-
No, but they're not
Not
mentioned.
really. No
So
dispute.
right. So we have what we call or what Chazal said, "Lo matzino eno ra'aya." We didn't find it.
Right.
Isn't proof, right? The argument from silence doesn't prove it didn't happen. But you're saying we would like to have had Greek sources, Babylonian sources. Okay, I hear what you're
Right.
saying.
We also know that
Hmm.
Xerxes had a wife whose name was Amestris. In Persian,
Hmm.
it was probably Amastri,
Hmm.
um, who lived. She was his wife. We know who her father was, Hutana, one of the 7 Persian nobles, because Achaemenid kings were only allowed to have their queen consort from one of these 7 families.
Hmm.
So she was the daughter of Hutana, who was a Persian, not a Jew.
Mm.
And she outlived him. She lived well into the reign of his son Artaxerxes. Some
Did
say,
they?
oh, Amestris,
Yeah.
it sounds like Esther.
It does sound like Esther. I was going to say that. Yeah.
But her father is not Jewish.
Yeah, but don't people
Uh,
lie about their
and
lineage?
also the things that Greek historians say about her,
Yeah.
we don't want them to say about Esther. She was very vicious.
Well, that sounds. I mean, how do I say this? That if you look at what they say today in Greece about Israelis, they're also pretty vicious. They're not true, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So all right. So I don't know that we can say
No,
definitively that Esther
w-
isn't true. That the Esther story didn't happen. That's what I'm hearing here.
we can't say anything. We can't say anything definitively until time
Okay.
travel is invented.
Okay. Fair enough. All
Okay.
right.
The story is suspiciously similar to the
Hmm.
accession of Darius to the throne.
Oh, let's talk
That is
about that.
also documented in the Behistun inscription that you mentioned.
Okay.
This inscription describes his accession to the throne,
All right.
and the Greek historians elaborate on it and add things that are not in the inscription itself.
Let me ask this. So there's a number of Dariuses. We have a Darius mentioned in the book of Zechariah or Zechariah. Is that this Darius or is it a different Darius?
I'm not sure about this Darius, but
Okay.
there have been at least there have been three.
So one of the
Darius.
Dariuses. So tell us the story of his ascension.
I'm talking about Darius the Great, who's Darius the First.
Okay.
Persian Darayavahush, the
Mhm.
person who carries the good.
So that's what it means. Okay.
Yes, in Hebrew he's called Daryavish.
Hmm. Okay.
Um,
So how did he ascend to
and
the throne? What's the story in the Behistun and Greek sources?
he wasn't king. The king
Uh-huh.
was Cyrus's son. After Cyrus, his son Cambodia, called Cambyses in Greek sources, succeeded him. And he was really crazy. We're not getting into it, but it's another interesting story.
You mean he was crazy, like he was like mentally ill or something? Or is that what you mean?
He was a psychopath.
Okay.
I mean,
He was like a Nero type figure or something? What are we saying?
when he had a dispute with one of his servants, he said, "Okay, bring your son. I'll shoot an arrow. If I hit his heart, I'm right, and if I don't hit his heart, you're right." And he killed the boy, for
Okay.
example. And when a two-headed calf was born in Egypt that was considered a god,
Okay.
he wounded his thigh.
He
And
wounded his own thigh?
no, the
The calf's
calf's
thigh. Oh, he
thigh.
calf like a
And
cow, you mean?
right.
Okay.
And if you wound a sacred animal that's a god, he can no longer be a god.
Okay.
You know,
I mean,
like
that kind of makes sense to me, but
Paraduma also has to be whole and
the
uninjured.
red heifer, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, red heifer.
So,
So
all right.
he was crazy. You know, you
I
don't
don't know
mess
if
with
that's
other people's
psychopathic.
gods.
Killing the son, that's like a Kim Jong, what's that guy's name in Korea kind of thing. But I don't know, wounding the animal to
Another
show
thing,
he's not a god, that makes a lot of sense to
another
me.
thing that Herodotus says is that he convinced his father to allow him to marry his sister. But knowing Zoroastrian religion, it's a commandment. It's like one of the best things you can do if you want to go to heaven.
Is to
So
marry your sister?
yeah, your sister, your daughter.
Wait a minute. We'll get back to Zoroastrianism. Tell us about the ascension of Darius, the son of Cambyses.
And we'll get back to first of kin marriage, next of kin marriage.
Wow. All right.
So Cyrus had two sons. Cambodia succeeded him. He was a little bit crazy. One night he had a dream. He misinterpreted it and accidentally sent a messenger. He sat in Egypt. He was in Egypt.
This is Cambyses or this is
kings
Darius?
were also pharaohs.
Is this Cambyses we're talking about?
What? Cambyses, yeah.
Okay, so the father has a dream and he's in Egypt. All right.
Cambodia is in Egypt. He has a dream.
Yeah.
And the dream is misinterpreted. He thinks that his brother is going to steal the throne. So because it was misinterpreted, he accidentally sends a servant to kill his brother. Because that's what you do if your brother is to steal your throne. And then when he's on his way back to Susa, he gets the dream comes true. Exactly the same messenger he saw in the dream comes and tells him in the exact same words that his brother is sitting on the throne. And to make a long story short, it wasn't his brother, it was an imposter.
Oh.
Not only was it an imposter, he was a Mede. And we remember that Cyrus the Great redeemed the Persians from the Medes.
Mm-hmm.
So after Cyrus the Great saved the Persian nation from the Medes and started the empire of Persia, now the Medes are going to take over because there's a Mede sitting on the throne. And when Kambuja jumps on his horse to run to Susa and make things right, by the way, the palace in Susa was built afterwards, but don't confuse Greek historians with exact
So the Greek
facts.
historians, you're saying, got some of the details wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he jumps on his horse to go back to Susa, and he has an accident. His sword, for some reason, gets into his thigh in the same place where he wounded the Egyptian god.
Okay.
And we're talking before the invention of antibiotics.
Yeah.
After 2 weeks, he dies from the wound. And before he dies, he tells the Persian nobles that he misinterpreted a dream and killed his brother by accident, and the person sitting on the throne claiming to be his brother is actually an imposter. And then he dies, and the servant who killed the brother won't confess because he doesn't have the king to back him.
Uh-huh.
So when they're back in Susa, they don't know if it's the real king or the imposter. Because as we remember, Kambuja was crazy. Maybe he's just trying to make a mess also from the afterlife. They get to Susa and they don't know if this is an imposter or the real king. He is acting very odd. He doesn't invite people to see his face, to see his presence. In the book of Esther, we have Ro'ei Pnei HaMelech, those who see the king's face. We have the servants who serve the king's face. Not everyone could see the king's face, but there were a few people. He didn't invite them. He didn't go out in public to be seen in public. And they get suspicious, but they need proof. So one of these nobles, Hutana, he's also the father of Amestris, the wife of Xerxes.
Okay.
One of his daughters, Faidime, was married to Kambuja, Cyrus's first son, and then moved with the whole harem to, we don't know, to the imposter or to the second son.
Okay.
But she is married to the present king.
So this Darius is on the throne, and we don't know if he's the real Darius or an imposter.
No, it's not Darius.
Oh, it's not.
No.
Who is it?
The one on the throne.
Yeah.
Okay, the Greek historians call him Smerdis, and they say that both the imposter and Cyrus's son were Smerdis.
Okay.
In Persian, they have different names. Bardia is the real son, and Gaumata is the imposter. I want to save on names because it's
it's confusing.
Could be confusing.
So Darius is not on the throne yet. There's someone who's either the real son or the fake son of Cambyses is on the throne. Okay, and we don't know if he's an imposter.
Of Cyrus, the brother, Cambyses' brother.
Oh, Cambyses' brother, I am confused. Who is the son of Cyrus or pretending to be the son of Cyrus? Got it.
Right.
And Cyrus is the one who gave the decree for the Jews to return to Israel. We'll get to that in a minute.
Father of the first human right declaration.
Okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
And they don't know, but Hutana's daughter is married to the king, and he can't talk to her directly because he's a man and she's in the harem. It wasn't called harem because harem comes from Arabic.
But they had something like a harem.
Bet Nashim, woman's house.
So let me just look. I believe the Esther story happened, but that's a theological position, right? Meaning it's not. I'm not saying that as a academic. What? How do we know Esther wasn't maybe one of the what do you call it? Harem concubines or something?
Oh, right? She could have been. She could have been.
Okay.
She could have been.
And maybe she was a very influential. What's that?
Yeah. She wasn't the main queen as presented in the book.
Unless
but
she's a
I,
Mastri, which you're saying
oh,
isn't
and I
possible.
also I say maybe it happened and just the biblical author exaggerated. It wasn't 75,000; it was 75.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't in all the king's kingdoms; it was only in Susa. We don't really know. We can always say the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Let me ask. So I want to get back
But
to
I
this.
didn't finish the story.
Let's finish the story of the ascension of Darius. So Cyrus
Okay.
has a son, and either he's on the throne or it's an imposter pretending to be the son as the brother of Cambyses the Michiganer. All right.
As his brother, Cambyses the Michigan said, yes.
Okay. All right.
And the father can't talk to his daughter directly because he's a man and she's in the woman's house, in the women's house.
He
So
can't talk to his own daughter?
No, he sits
Because
in the
they have kin
king's
marriage.
gate
We'll
and
talk
he
about
talks to her
Yeah.
by a eunuch, via a eunuch.
That's in the Esther story too.
Mm.
Okay.
And
Wow.
their talk goes like this. He asks her via the eunuch, is the man that you share your bed with Cyrus's son or someone else? And she says, I don't know. I haven't met him before I was married to him.
Mhm.
So he says, okay, but all the women are together. You can ask Hutausa, the daughter of Cyrus the Great, who was married to her brother Kambuja, then moved with the whole harem to either the other brother or the imposter. You can ask her. She obviously knows who her brother is.
Wait, so just to be clear, the concubines of Cambyses go to have sex with the man who is supposedly the brother of Cambyses?
When a king dies, the harem goes to his successor.
Okay. Well, we have something like that in the book of Samuel, but yeah,
right.
That's weird. All right, go on.
So she says, but no, he split us up. We're not together. We can't talk to each other.
Mm.
And this makes him very, very suspicious. And he says, you know what? When your turn comes to be with the king, when your turn comes, feel under his curls, because the imposter, the person we suspect is the imposter, doesn't have ears. Cambyses cut them off as some punishment or in some rage attack. And the son of Cyrus would have ears. So just feel under his curls next time after he falls asleep. And if he doesn't have ears, let me know. And she says, but if he wakes up and feels that I'm feeling under his ears, under his curls, and he is the imposter, he'll kill me. And he said, but you're our only hope. The freedom of your people depends on you.
That sounds like the Esther story too. All
yes.
right. Wow. All right. Oh, I see. You're saying there's an actual story that's being told by in the Behistun inscription by the Greeks, and in the
Behistun inscription, there's no girl.
There isn't. Okay. So this is from Greek sources.
He says that he talks about Kambuja and Bardia, the sons, and he talks about the imposter.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, I and other people went, but he doesn't say how they got to realize that he's not the
woman
real
doesn't
king.
get the credit. Got it.
Yeah, this is from the Greeks.
Okay.
So he says you have to do it, and she said, okay, I will go and I will save my people. V'kasher avaditi avaditi.
If I am lost, I am lost, is what it says.
If I'm lost, I'm lost. That's from Esther, but she basically said more or less the same things. Yeah. And the morning after her turn comes, she goes and informs her father that the person sitting on the throne has no ears. So Hutana goes and gathers 6 other Persian nobles. Together they're 7, which is a good number in Zoroastrianism, and
really. 7 has a significance.
Zoroastrianism is 7. It's a typological number.
Oh, okay.
So they are 7, and they go. Darius the Achaemenid is the last to join them, and they go together and they kill the imposter and they kill his brother, who was the servant who helped him sit on the throne, and they kill all the other Medes, and they run around with their heads in the streets and encourage more Persians to kill more Medes. And at least until the 4th century, which is about, it's more than 100 years after this incident, they still celebrated on that day a very odd holiday called, in Greek it's Magophonia. I think in Persian it's Magupawan, protector of the clergy, because clergy were not allowed on the street on that day. If they go on the street, they might get beaten up. Because he was the Mede imposter was also, in Darius's story, he was a Magu.
So he was a Zoroastrian priest.
Yes.
What in Christian world they call the Magi, right? Which is plural of the Magus.
Magi is the plural of Magus in Persian or Avestan. It's Magu.
Okay.
And ask me when that holiday was.
Was it
when the event took place?
Was it in Adar on the 14th day, or
no?
Oh, when was it?
It was in the 10th day of Bagayadi, which is the equivalent of Tishrei.
Oh, so it's on what was Yom Kippur in Judaism. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you explain that? What's the explanation there?
The explanation is New Year's myths in the ancient world.
Mm-hmm.
In the ancient world, before the new year, it's not like, we're pretty sure that the new year will start.
Okay.
Our ancient forefathers were not so sure that the new year will start. The world was always in danger. This is also until today. In Elul, there's Slichot, and in Yom Kippur, all the fortunes are signed and decided.
But that's I think in Judaism, let's say in Judaism as it's evolved over the centuries, because there was no significance to Elul, thousands of years ago. Right, meaningless. Like what you mentioned there is, I'm just telling for the audience, Slichot are these prayers of forgiveness that are recited for 40 days leading up to Yom Kippur, beginning in the 6th month. Elul.
Yeah, so
but that's kind of a later tradition, isn't it? Meaning, or you're saying it has some parallel in Zoroastrianism?
It has very, very deep roots.
Okay.
In the ancient days on Yom Kippur, the Jews didn't fast. It was the great grand priest, Kohen Gadol.
Right, the high priest.
The high priest who used to go into the Holy of Holies, and everybody was afraid because nobody knew if he would come out of it alive. Mm-hmm. He went to atone for the sins of everybody. But the 10th day is 10th or 13th day of the year is always the ominous day. And the new year is either around the autumn equinox or spring equinox or the longest night of the year.
Okay.
So the 13th day or the 10th day is ominous, and for the world to be saved, God or God's representative has to die. And God's representative is usually the king or a prophet or God's son, if you're Christian. But you usually don't kill the king. So there's all these holidays had stories about an alternative king. Haman had the signet ring, but he wasn't the king.
Right.
This king was not the real king, not really Cyrus's son.
As Americans say, he just played one on TV, right? Meaning, like he was the viceroy, and effectively the second to the king.
Yeah.
So are you saying that Magophonia, this holiday in the Zoroastrian world, or maybe in the Persian world, goes back to some maybe ancient, early pagan idea, but then they made up a story about the assassination.
I also suspect that Darius's story is not true. I think there were rumors that he's not the legitimate king. He killed Cyrus's son. Also, the period that the imposter sat on the throne is either 3 or 7 months, which is also typological numbers. It's too,
Yeah, but it kind of rings true in the sense that if there really is a King Darius who's overthrowing the previous king, you're gonna make up a story that, well, I killed him because he was a faker, right? Yeah. Meaning, isn't that what someone would do? Meaning, and maybe some of the details have been exaggerated or made up. That sounds right. But
and maybe it wasn't really in the 10th day of Bagayadi, but they wrote it
they
as if
latched
it
on
was
to that day. So how do you
yeah.
explain the holiday? And so this is a genuine question for me. How if you don't believe, and I'm not saying you don't, right? But if one doesn't believe that the Esther story took place, where did this holiday come from? Maybe you just explained it, but it's on the 14th and
It's in
15th day of the
all the New
12th
Year's
month.
holidays have in their myth, there's,
Yeah.
the death of the king's representative
Yeah.
or someone on his behalf, like
Mm-hmm.
not Pharaoh, but all his hosts and all the
Mm-hmm.
firstborns, not God, but Jesus, not Allah, but Imam Hussein on the 10th
I don't
day
know
of
enough about that to fully
the
understand it,
Ashura,
but
the 10th day
okay.
of the Muslim
So
year
that's where
is
the Shiites celebrate the death of their founder or something?
celebrate.
Or they
Mourn.
observe. Oh, is that where they hit themselves in the head with swords?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is very
And
interesting. Yeah.
there are always holidays because there's a temporary king. In many cultures, it was someone from death row who would become king for a very limited time and then killed.
Okay.
And if someone from the death row is king, the king used to sit in the field, which we also sing in Elul. Some Jewish people sing in Elul HaMelech Basadeh, the king is in the field.
Okay.
Because at that time, the king goes to sit in the field and he's more accessible. And the
As opposed to
holiday,
being
the
in
myth,
the palace. Or,
the myth also needs some bloodshed that we have in Egypt and we have in the Book of Esther and we have in Darius' succession to the throne and in a lot of other holidays and the Ashura.
yeah, I'm skeptical of
And
the
then there's a
skepticism
holiday
because
that is very, very weird.
Yeah.
In Yom Kippur, we don't eat. In Purim, it says nafochu. On the contrary, we dress up.
We do the opposite. Yeah.
Well,
the dressing up is a very late thing. Come on, that's like from 15th century Venice or something.
Italy, yeah, right. But we do the opposite. The mitzvah is nafochu, to do things that you don't usually do.
Yeah.
And even Seder Pesach is a Greek symposium, and we drink like Gentiles.
Well, so what I think what maybe we can agree on is there are rituals that we have that were kind of added on over the centuries that were influenced by surrounding cultures. In other words, in the Torah, it doesn't say to get drunk on Passover. So
we have the same roots.
Okay.
We have the same roots, and the myths changed maybe according to history that was, maybe according to history that we wish there was. The Book of Esther was written about 200 years after the events took place or not in the Greek period. And we really missed the Persians because they were good to us. Cyrus the Great let us come back to Israel.
Let's talk about Cyrus the Great. So this is a story that we read in the Tanakh, and we read it in two places verbatim. At the end of Chronicles and the opening verses of Ezra, that there's this King Cyrus, and he fulfills the prophecy of Jeremiah by telling us we can go back to the land, which...
And what you said in the beginning, that not having external sources is not proof that it didn't happen, is exactly what happened here, because there were no external sources until the late 19th century when the Cyrus cylinder was found. And then
tell us about the Cyrus cylinder,
The Cyrus cylinder was found in 1879 in the excavations in Babylon. And Cyrus says there he says it in Akkadian, not in Old Persian. Cyrus didn't leave anything in Old Persian. There are a few inscriptions that say, "I'm Cyrus the Great Achaemenid." I think they're fake. I think Darius needed to.
Do you think Darius concocted some kind of older inscriptions?
There are also fake olds, not only fake news.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah.
So in the cylinder, he says, I returned, I let the gods have their people back. I returned the gods' peoples to the gods, which means I allowed them to go back to their lands. And I built the temples for all the gods that his predecessor had ruined. Because his predecessor said everyone should, previous Babylonian king, said everyone should pray to the moon god and no other gods. And Cyrus
Really?
let
Wait, talk
everyone.
about that for a minute. Was this Nabonidus or who was this?
I'm not sure. I
Okay.
think.
But one of the
Yeah.
Babylonian rulers is making everybody worship his god. That's in the book of Daniel, by the way, right? Meaning
Yeah.
like, okay.
And then Cyrus says anyone can worship whatever god they want as long as they don't hurt others. It's the first human rights declaration. The
Wow.
present-day Islamic Republic doesn't work uh, according to these principles. A lot of places in the world are still behind Xerxes from over 2,500
Or
years
is
ago.
it Cyrus or Cyrus, you mean, right? Or
Cyrus.
Cyrus.
Cyrus the
So
Great.
Cyrus makes this decree: any nation can worship any god he wants.
And I returned all the people to their gods. I built
Oh,
for all the temples for the gods, and I ask all gods to say good things about me to Marduk in heaven.
okay. Wait, so but Cyrus didn't believe in Marduk, did he?
We don't know. We don't know. It was
Okay.
found in Babylon. So
So
maybe
that's the
he gave each
Babylonian
nation
version.
a declaration with their own God, because
That
in the
makes
Bible
sense.
it says the God of the heavens. Or maybe this was the declaration. It mentioned Marduk because he was the most popular god in the area, or the Babylonian god. And maybe Cyrus didn't write it on his own because kings were not
Yeah, one of his
supposed to read
scribes
and
or
write. You
something
know, it
wrote it.
wasn't what they did. They
Yeah.
had writers for that.
So all right. So is your understanding that what's reported in the Tanakh about Cyrus giving permission to the Jews to return to the land, that's a true thing? That happened?
It happened. He let everybody
Okay.
go back.
Okay.
And he let everybody
So
build their temples.
so the way it's portrayed in or you could take away from the Tanakh that well, there was something special, he let the Jews back, but the Cyrus cylinders would suggest he let lots of nations go back to where they had been exiled from.
Yes, but that includes the Jews. So the
Right.
Cyrus declaration is a true event.
So let me ask this question. So the Babylonians and the Assyrians had this strategy that they would kidnap entire populations and move them somewhere else so that they couldn't rebel, because now, like, your neighboring towns, you don't know who they are because you're in exile. And the Persians had a difference. Well, why did they change that strategy? Do we know? Why would they let the Jews go back?
They let all the nations go back because maybe they realized that maybe they would rebel less, or they would be grateful and pay their taxes on time. I mean, empires, what do you need to conquer countries for? For their taxes and for their soldiers.
Yeah.
So maybe they thought that they would give
They'll be
soldiers
eternally
and
grateful.
taxes more. Yeah, keep them grateful. That's and it worked.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe because they have been in exile for a few generations, not everyone went back.
Right. Only
You
about
know,
10%.
Xerxes was his grandson, and there were Jews in Persia at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a misconception. People think all the Jews went back. Maybe it was 10%, maybe less. It sounds
It's not like now, not all the Jews are in Israel.
Right. Although it's almost the majority at this point, but we're getting there. So, all right. So, that's really interesting about Cyrus.
And if you want, a real event that you and I remember, that also answers to the same pattern of the 13th day of the year, a country that's in danger, and number 2 gets killed, and then big bloodshed, and then a holiday, and then back to normal. Because I think that the New Year's myth and the holidays that were doing the contrary and doing other things were an opportunity for the people to vent, but in an orderly manner, and then go back to normal. That's my theory. I didn't read it anywhere. Maybe someone else also wrote it.
Can you talk to me for a minute about, and I want to get back to so many things to talk about. I want to talk about Zoroastrianism.
I do, but remind me that I want to tell you how a real historical event that you and I remember conforms to this pattern of New Year's myth.
Tell us.
Okay. We said that the New Year could be the longest night of the year, right?
Okay.
The longest night of the year in Iranian calendar is the night before the first of day. Day is the month that begins in the longest night of the year.
The month is called day?
The month is called day, yes.
Oh, that's confusing. Okay. The month of
D-E-Y.
day.
The month of day.
Of DEI.
Yeah.
Okay.
D-E-Y.
Oh, DEY.
So on the 13th of the month of day,
yeah,
which was January 3rd,
okay.
2020,
Uh-huh.
Qasem Soleimani was eliminated by the United States.
Okay. He was an arch
So it was the
terrorist, for those
13th
who don't
day
remember.
after the longest night of the year. He was Khamenei's number 2, not officially in the hierarchy, but he was the closest person to him.
Yeah.
The Islamic Republic felt that it's in danger by physical war, economic war, moral war, because the Western influence on Iranian youth, cyber war, you name it. They were under all kinds of threats. And after his death, there were a lot of people who died. There were a few people who died in his funerals. They had, it was like a tour in Iraq, in 2 cities in Iraq and like 5 cities in Iran. And a few people got squished to death in his funerals. And then the IRGC wanted to shoot a missile to an American base in Iraq, and instead they shot down Flight 752 of Ukrainian Airlines that had more than 170 people on board, more than half of them Iranian. So there was that bloodshed that caused first, after he was killed, the people rallied around the flag. After the plane was shot down, they first said that the Americans shot it down, but then it was revealed that it was the IRGC, and there were protests even by people who were.
And the IRGC is the Iranian Revolutionary. What is IRGC?
Islamic. No, the word Iran is not in the name of the IRGC.
Really?
The Islamic Revolution Guard Corps.
So that's basically like the SS of the Islamic Republic, right?
Yeah, they protect the Islamic Revolution against the Iranian people and outside threats.
All right.
So there were a lot of protests, and since then Iranians celebrate on the 13th of day روز بین‌المللی cutlet day, because Soleimani became a cutlet when he was killed.
Like chicken cutlet? Like what?
Yeah, like Soleimani cutlet.
Because he was blown up, or what does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
He became ground meat, so they celebrate. And
they call it that? They call it that?
Yeah, the government doesn't like it at all. And there was a chef who posted to Instagram a cutlet recipe on this day, and his Instagram was banned, and he was arrested. And
so are you saying this is something?
People still celebrate it.
So this is like a popular holiday, or
yeah, it's a satirical holiday.
Oh, it's
not a real holiday.
Oh, okay, I got you. All right. So Zoroastrianism. Talk to us about the religion. So the religion of Zoroastrianism is extremely important because of, I would say, its influences on Judaism and Christianity. Right. But also in the Tanakh, is at least as most Bible scholars understand it, Isaiah 45 is addressing Zoroastrianism.
You have been listening to Hebrew Voices with Nehemia Gordon. Thank you for supporting Nehemia's Makor Hebrew Foundation. Learn more at nehemiaswall.com.